All right. Hey, folks. Thanks for joining me. And today's topic is going to be on the anabolic rebound. What exactly that is, how do we utilize that to make good gains if we've stalled out? But firstly, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any questions or comments of your own, pop them down in the comments. And if you'd like to work with me on your own strength and physique goals, there's a link in the description. So firstly, to start with, I got this question over through on Instagram DMs, and this guy said, most people preach not to bulk past, say, 18 to 20% body fat. And also that if you're leaner than 12%, it's best to gain some weight to maximize muscle. And he said, well, what does an individual like me do who's hovering around about 17 to 20%? It's a good question. Now, I explained to him my thought process, and I thought the answer would give a good insight into a strategy that you guys can use, because I think a lot of people are in this position where they're not as big or as muscular as they would like to be, but at the same time, they're at the top end of the body fat range, which they're either comfortable with or which people have told them that is reasonable in a bulk. So it depends on your current progress. Okay, it's one of the things it depends on. Are you actually still gaining muscle and gaining strength on a regular basis? Are you able to gain those quantifiably and on a regular basis? Are you able to add 5 pounds, 2.5 kilos to the bar every now and again? Are you able to get some more reps every now and again? Are you actually improving and can quantifiably say, I'm improving. Here you go, Faz, look at my training diary. Here's the proof that I'm progressing and moving forward. Are you able to say that? If you are, great, carry on. Okay. I think that's the big thing. If you're still progressing, go for it. The next factor is, have you actually been in a surplus for a while? So what often tends to happen is people who sit around that 18 to 20% body fat range, or even higher, 25%, is they'll try to cut down. They'll get to a certain body fat and then just binge their way back up again. And so they'll maybe cut for 3 or 4 months, and within 2 weeks, they're back to where they were, or roughly there. If that's what you've done, then you've not spent anywhere near enough time gaining. So stay where you are. Okay, stay roughly about that sort of body fat range rather than cutting down again, because what will happen is if you cut now, you'll end up just yo-yoing, because you'll cut back down with probably the same strategy you used to cut down in the first place, and then rebound, binge, and before you know it, you're back to where you were. So that's not a good strategy either. And the third factor to decide what you should do is, do you feel okay at that body fat? Do you feel all right at, say, 18 to 20% body fat, or do you feel too fat yourself? So these are all questions which you need to address in deciding what to do and whether to cut down and to make use of this strategy. So if you are still gaining, carry on. Okay, still at that body fat, but you're gaining strength, great, go for it, carry on. If you've not been in a surplus for very long, then carry on. And if you personally feel okay, then carry on. Now, the other side of the coin is, if you have actually stalled out, so let's say you're sat there, 18 to 20% body fat, and you've been there for a while, and you are not gaining any strength, so nothing quantifiable. Maybe you've changed routines and you've added a bit of strength, or you've done a different rep scheme and you've added a bit of strength, but if you've not actually quantifiably increased strength in a basic rep range, in the basic exercises, then the strategy for you is to cut down. Cut down to a very lean body fat, okay, maybe 10%, something like that, which is reasonably lean, 10 to 12. Reasonably, you'll have abs at 10 to 12. I mean, you'll have abs by about 15%, really, but you'll have good, decent abs at 10%. You have very sharp abs at 10%. Take your body weight down to the point where you're lean, maybe not quite shredded, but you're very lean. Certainly maybe 5 to 10% leaner than you are now, based on what your current body fat is. Because what tends to happen is the rebound from that lean state back up to where you are now, if you do that correctly, if you do that nice and slowly, then it tends to lead to very good gains. So for whatever reason, the rebound tends to be very, very productive in terms of gains. That's when I've always gained the majority of my muscle, is on that rebound back up again. It's very good. And I think over time, you can get to a leaner and leaner sort of stable body weight. Let's say you normally hang out at about 200 pounds, just for example's sake. And currently at 200 pounds, you're a fattish 200 pounds. Well, every time you go down to 180 and then bulk back up slowly, with sufficient strength gain, you should be leaner and leaner at 200 pounds. And that's the idea. That's a nice way of doing things. So use that anabolic rebound, get down to a low body fat percentage, and then use that rebound. And it works for a number of reasons. I think probably the first reason it works is you're in a deficit calorie surplus. Now, I've sort of addressed recompositioning before, and I've said that it's possible to do, but I always provide the caveat with it's possible, but it's not optimal for muscle gain. So optimality is always going to be gaining weight. That's always going to give you the best chance of succeeding in terms of muscle gain and muscle and strength. It's just more fun, right? So one of the reasons I think it works very well is you're constantly in a calorie surplus, which is excellent for work capacity, for gaining strength, for gaining mass. So that tends to lead to very good gains. Second thing is, I think more than likely, when you're at that lean state, your insulin sensitivity and your partitioning is improved. I've said it before in videos. I'm not sure if I've said it recently, but in the argument to do with P ratio, that is partitioning ratio, I'm firmly on the side that says better, but leaner people who have better partitioning ratio tend to gain muscle better. In my experience and that of my clients, that is true 100% of the time. If somebody is at the point where they're overly fat, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times I've experienced that they just don't gain any more strength and muscle. That you can tap out at 18 to 20% or 25% or 30%. At that stage, it becomes very hard to carry on gaining muscle and strength, in my experience. What's a better strategy is cut right down to 10 to 15% body fat, holding on to your strength, and then the next rebound up is just going to lead to even more fresh gains of muscle and strength as you push into that next level. So you can utilize that. Also, doing a big, long, hard cut, dropping 10% body weight, whatever, it gives you a lot more of a runway to gain weight. So it gives you potentially months and months. So just to summarize it before I move on to the last part of the video, hopefully I've impressed upon you the idea that there is a specific circumstance that where you might benefit from this strategy. If you are one, at the top end of the body fat you find acceptable, and two, if you have stopped gaining muscle and strength, and three, if you've been in that surplus for a while, it's a good strategy then to lean down and use the anabolic rebound. Okay. The reason I think it works well is your body is primed to do that. And the last thing is, how do you set these phases up? My opinion is that you should be in a gaining phase most of the year. In terms of the top end number of cuts per year, I would say it's probably about 2. If you're spending a couple of months at a time cutting, so let's say 4 months cutting, or even 3 months, so 6 to 8 weeks on a cut twice a year, that's pretty good. Because then if you're cutting for, say, those 3 to 4 months, you've got that 8 to 9 months of gaining for the rest of the time, which is a very good position to be in. That means you have the best chance of putting on as much muscle as possible. Your metabolism is going to be as high as possible because your NEAT is never really going to be depressed. You'll be able to gain more muscle. So to do that, you have to make sure your gaining phases happen very, very slowly. So it necessitates going to very, very slowly. Oftentimes, the guys who have trouble holding on to good body composition, they tend to not maximize their bulks because they gain weight way too fast in their gaining phases. So they end up most of the year just cutting. And in the end, they never really change because they don't spend enough time actually gaining and they spend horribly long time cutting. You want to reverse that paradigm. Most of your time should be spent in a surplus, but a small surplus, and a small amount of time should be spent cutting. The way that I did it this year was very good. So I spent 6 months gaining about 6 kilos. I spent 2 months cutting about 6 kilos. There you go. It's a good way of doing things. That's about right. Okay. And you can replace kilos with percentage of body weight if you'd like, if you're smaller or you're larger. So yes, that's my sort of message for today. If you are stuck, and if you do satisfy that criteria that I said at the beginning of the video, consider doing a big, massive, long cut. Who cares if it's January and people are bulking right now, ready for the summer? If it's right for you, then it's right for you. If you are in that position, consider doing a long cut right the way down, and then doing a hard, fast cut, and then use that rebound. And if you want help with that, and if you want help actually managing that, if you gain weight way too quickly, if you take too long losing weight, then contact me. My prices are reasonable. I offer one-on-one coaching. You get me every week, every day. You get video replies, you talking with me, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very good. It works. And so let me plan that out for you and let me help you see that through. Details are in the description, but I'd love to work with you. And I'll call it there for now. Hopefully that was a useful video, and I'll speak to you guys in the next one. Take care.